Now, obviously, you're looking at things for the long term. One of the companies that you told me you've been buying more stock in is IBM. You told me that on Saturday, that in the first quarter you bought more shares. We will see that coming out in SEC filings soon. And I just wonder what you see in the long haul for IBM, because there have been a bunch of people who have questioned why you got into that stock right now. What do you see happening over the long haul?
Well, I think 10 years from now that they'll be earning a fair amount more money than they are now, and I think they'll have a fair amount fewer shares, so our percentage ownership will be up, and I think we'll make considerable money. I can always be wrong on any stock, but that's my best estimate. I felt that way when we started buying it a few years ago. They get $1,165 million or something like that shares out then. They have 985 million shares out now, so our interest has gone up by 15 or so % without us laying out a dime in that respect. And it's true that they're going through a transition in terms of the products. Many of the products their customers like, but if you looked at those people on that program, Wells Fargo is a huge customer, American Express is a huge customer, and my guess is that 10 years from now, Wells Fargo and American Express will be huge customers of IBM. They'll be selling them different things than they're selling them now, but they'll be solving the problems that those companies have at that time, and that's my best estimate. I can be wrong.
There was a story from Reuters, I think it was last week, just before the meeting came out, questioning the idea of the competitive moats that you always look for in companies, questioning whether they could continue when it comes to, this article pointed out, IBM and Coca-Cola in particular. What do you say back in response to that?
Well, I would say that if you have 1.9 billion 8-ounce servings of your product being consumed around the world in 200 countries by people who consumed it yesterday and are going to consume it tomorrow, I would say that that's a pretty strong competitive position to be in. If people like something today, they usually like it tomorrow. And usually as their kids come along and more people inhabit the world, they like it. So here you have a product, we'll take Coca-Cola. It started in 1886. And maybe during the war when they had a little trouble getting sugar or something of the sort, maybe there were some declines in total consumption, but per capita consumption of Coca-Cola products has gone up almost every year since 1886. So you have to be doing something right. Our ketchup at Heinz, started in the 1870s, and people are still putting it on hot dogs. So I don't think something's going to change dramatically tomorrow on that.
Andrew, you have a question too?
Hey Warren, how are you? One of the things you said, this goes back to IBM, one of the things you said on Saturday was there's been more stupid stuff written and stupid stuff done when it comes to buying back stock. And one of the big questions about IBM, of course, is how much stock they've bought back over the past decade. I know you've supported their efforts to continue buying back stock. Do you wish that they had bought back all that stock when the stock was higher?
Well, I mean, obviously, you'd like to buy every stock at the low tick, but that doesn't happen for them or for me. But overall, their stock repurchase program, and even I think it goes back even more than a decade, has been dramatic, and it's been enormously beneficial to the shareholders. And incidentally, while they reduced their shares, they also had, I think, something like 250 million shares of options outstanding 10 years ago. The options are now down to a few million. So they not only reduced the number of shares dramatically, they practically eliminated this fantastic overhang. So we look at it, buying in stock can be extremely dumb. It can be extremely smart. It was extremely smart for Henry Singleton of Teledyne, and I won't give you the names of people where it was extremely dumb. It all depends on whether you're buying a stock for less than it's worth.
I don't know. Did you get a chance?
And we think that.
I was going to say, did you see Larry Fink about a couple weeks ago put out this letter saying that he thought that companies these days were buying back too much stock and trying to actually put too much money back into the pockets of shareholders rather than investing in their own businesses? And I wanted to get your thought on whether he was right or wrong about that.
Yeah, Andrew, it's all case specific. We say that Berkshire will buy our stock in it, and will buy it aggressively at 120% of book value. I know that at that price, the shareholders who stay are gaining on a per share basis because we're doing that. If we were to buy it in at 200% of book value, our shareholders that we're staying would be penalized by that action. It's solely a function of what you're paying compared to the price. If you and I if we owned a McDonald's stand together, and I bought you out at 80 cents on the dollar, I bought in your stock, I would be ahead of the game for doing so. If I paid you 120% of what it was worth, I'd be behind the game. And it's that simple an equation for managements, but many managements just decide we're going to buy an X billion dollars worth of stock and we're going to do it over the next 12 months or 24 months. That's no way to buy anything. I mean, the way to buy things is to buy them when you think they're selling for less than they're worth. And when you do that, you are favoring the continuing shareholder. Now, in doing it, you have a moral obligation to make sure that the exiting shareholder has received all the facts, and just like you would if you're buying a person out of the McDonald's stand. But it's not a complicated equation at all to figure out whether it's beneficial or not beneficial to repurchase shares. We know how to do it at Berkshire, and we'll be doing it this way 10 years or 20 years from now.
Hey,
Joe?
Hey, Warren. Good to see you. I hear you.
Hi, Joe.
You must have been talking a lot again. Once you get started, it's hard to get you to start. You sound a little bit hoarse, but and you got 2.5 hours to go. You got 2.5 hours to go. Here's
Well, I get paid by the word, so
we kind of do.
So does
actually.
Joe.
Yeah, we kind of do. I'll tell you what I was thinking. I don't know how to ask it, actually. This morning I listened on the way in now. I got headphones and I got my iPhone and everything, and I downloaded something from the cloud. So that's about as much as I know about the cloud. And I'm wondering about your technological expertise, because as I recall, I don't think you bought Microsoft. I don't think you ever bought really Apple. I don't know if you ever bought Intel. I don't know if you ever bought Cisco. I mean, you have sort of an aversion, not an aversion, but maybe you don't feel like you have the expertise, and yet that changed somehow with IBM. And I've never really understood that. Maybe it's because they're such a services company now, and they've got so many established relationships that it's almost an annuity. Or do you actually understand what type of cloud strategy that a company like IBM should have right now? Because I remember Carl Icahn buying Motorola, and I said he has no idea what kind of phones to put out there, or Biogen. I doubt if he had any idea how any of the biotechnology products worked, and yet he knew how to do that. Is it the same with you, or how did it change with IBM?
Well, I got great news for you, Joe. You're only the second dumbest guy in the country about the cloud. I've got you beat out in that respect. What we do, and there's no question that I have far less technical knowledge about how IBM works than I do about how Wells Fargo or Coca-Cola works. But we do have 70 plus companies, and when we talk to them, we learn something of their plans, and we learn about competitive products, and we make some estimates. We'll take Wells Fargo. My guess is that Wells Fargo, IBM's their biggest supplier now. My guess is that IBM will be their biggest supplier 5 or 10 years from now. I think that there's a significant difference. Sometimes the location of the information actually has to be geographically specific, but there's certainly differences in the degree of security that people feel they need in terms of storing information on the cloud. And as I talk to CEOs and I talk to our own managers, I feel pretty good about IBM's future, probably more so in what they call the hybrid cloud than the cloud that you generally read about. IBM is it's a trusted organization. It's an innovative organization, and they're competing against a lot of other people that are innovative too. But it's not a winner-take-all game. I mean, search, you might say, comes very close to a winner-take-all game. Cloud computing is not a winner-take-all game.
I understand. Yeah. So there's a hybrid cloud. So right there, you're not the second.
He just one up you with
you just one up me on that one, and you tried not to, but there's you're crazy like him. I bet you know a lot more about IBM's strategy for the future.
Don't bet too much.
Yeah. No. Yeah. But when you put it that way with Wells Fargo, knowing that, and they probably have relationships like that with I don't know how many of the S&P 500, and you're probably right. That's probably going to stay. But so you're not really looking at it like an Apple or like some type of disruptive, innovative technology now. You're looking at it as an established sort of a brand name that's not as dependent, I don't think, on innovation as some of the newer tech players.
Yeah, well, Amazon, for example, I mean, they just gave their figures out on cloud computing a few weeks ago, and you know, I would guess they have far more customers by number, perhaps, than an IBM, because they made themselves open to all kinds of developers, and that's probably a very good business model. I mean, Jeff Bezos is a very, very, very smart guy, and he got in early, but what he's doing does not, it is not a winner-take-all game, and different kinds of organizations have different needs. American Express is a huge customer of IBM. Our Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad, we pay a lot of money to IBM every year, and we're very, very, very likely to continue paying a lot of money. And they'll modify their offerings to things that are more useful to us as we go along. But listen, Microsoft's going to prosper, Amazon's going to prosper, you know, Oracle's going to prosper, but I think IBM's going to prosper too. And I think what they have done from a capital structure standpoint, on top of that, I like very much. I mean, it is a company with they had 250 million of options when they had 1.6 or 7 billion shares outstanding, and now they're down to 985 million with you know, virtually no options. One of the interesting things about an IBM, and it's true of other tech companies, IBM earns infinite returns on a tangible common equity. I mean, those are very good businesses, not just IBM. You can take the others, but those are basically very good businesses. We earn a lot of money to Burlington Northern, but we have a huge tangible investment. There is no net tangible investment. They are earning infinite returns on net tangible equity at IBM. At Geico, we are spending millions and millions of dollars with Watson, and we've been working with it for probably a year or so, and there are a lot of possibilities with it, and we're learning a lot as we go along. I mean, we're not to the finish point by a long shot, but we do consider it as something of potentially great value in terms of our insurance business. The one thing I was thinking of doing this year was to work into my report the fact that there would be a third party at the sitting up there with Charlie and Munger and myself at the meeting, and have people speculating about this being my successor, and maybe having having it hidden in some way, and then unveiling it and waiting for the first question, which you could have asked, and you could have said, well, let's get right to the meat of it. Who's going to be Warren's successor? And then have Watson rumble a little bit and finally say, I am. Sort of going back to hell in terms of 2001.
Right. Yeah. With Geico, what are you using Watson to do?
Well, we're training Watson. Watson learns, and basically but it's not going to know anything that we haven't taught it. I mean, in terms of putting in the information, but it learns, and it would be enormously valuable, for example, just in terms of training thousands of new people who act as agents for us on the phone. I mean, they have to be licensed and that sort of thing. And it may, and this is a long way off, but it possibly could be responding to tens of thousands of phone calls that we get every day. And it can be helpful in terms of claims, and it can learn a lot, and it has to learn what humans mean when they talk to it. But I think the most exciting thing right now, of course, is in the health field, because you have millions of doctors around the world that can't possibly keep up with all the scientific specialist information coming along, and they have, somebody, if I have prostate cancer, my doctor's seen maybe 500 people with prostate cancer, and for 1,000 treated them, and he draws certain deductions from what this test meant and that test meant. But imagine getting that in the millions and having that all processed. So I think a lot of things are going to happen in medicine.